In 1996, the Lexus LX 450 debuted as the first Lexus crossover. LX literally meant luxury crossover, and it was based on the body-on-frame Landcruiser 80 series and gave Lexus a large people mover capable of going toe-to-toe with the Gwagon. Fast forward 3 more generations, and the LX 600 is still based on the Landcruiser, now the 300 series, and carry up to 7 passengers. But not every family needs world-beating off-road capacity, nor the desire to drop over $100,000 on a well-equipped LX. Instead, Lexus has been left with a gaping hole in its lineup that the LX, GX, and RX have never been able to fill. Meanwhile, the competition not only continues to get better, but more and more large crossovers and SUVs are spilling into the market to satisfy the large luxury crossover buyer. This is all about to change with the Lexus TX, a large crossover to fight the BMW X7, Benz GLS, Acura MDX, and more, and will do so with a slew of tempting electrified powertrains. Welcome back to the channel. I have a lot of Lexus things to talk to you about today. The TX be inspired. We'll break this down. We also have the GT3 race car going to be a Lexus model. We'll talk about that later as well. So we have a lot of Lexus news to break down, but we're going to start with the TX because the TX is the most important Lexus model that Lexus needs to debut. We don't need another LFA. I mean, that's cool. Halo product brings excitement to the brand. We need a vehicle that pushes sales and is catering to where the market is right now. And that's crossovers, but more specifically, Lexus needs a capable 3-row crossover that doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Lexus has already announced that the TX will be built, well, not the TX, they just said a 3-row crossover, but the TX has been trademarked. The TX will be electrified in many different ways, but also be built in the Princeton, Indiana plant alongside of a large Toyota Grand Highlander. Both those names, the TX and Grand Highlander, have been trademarked, and these vehicles will have semi-autonomous driving technology. They'll have plug-in hybrids, electrification, etc. But this image out of Mag X, and we'll go over powertrains later, this image out of Mag X is a Japanese magazine and scoop site. They have what could very well be the spy shot of the TX. So what we're going to do is break this down and compare it to the current Highlander because we don't have a 3-row Lexus that kind of competes with it. Now, the angle that we're viewing the TX here isn't the same as the Highlander. And the reason is I feel like the camera is probably at an angle somewhere that's lined up with this front wheel. So it's kind of looking back at the vehicle. So that kind of messes up the proportions versus a full-on side view, which is probably somewhere around the B pillar that we have with this Highlander here. Now, this TX will be built on the same platform as the Highlander, the K platform, which, gosh, at least half of Toyota's lineup here in North America is based off the K platform, which the new RX, NX, ES are already based off. The new TX will be based off of, and I'm not going to go down to the rabbit hole with the K platform Toyotas out there. Just know that this is a very flexible platform. It is a lighter platform. If we look at the new RX, it's about 200 pounds lighter than the outgoing RX just from switching platforms and using different materials. But let's talk about the proportions. And the overhang looks to be a lot bigger than what we have on the Highlander, and that's unfortunate. But keep in mind, they put a lot of camouflage on these vehicles to throw off the proportions, but it does. I mean, let's say front end of the vehicle ends here, it is still a longer overhang that we have on the Highlander. If we look at the Lexus RX, the front overhang on the new RX 2023 model, stay tuned, driving impressions, September 9th, I'll give you my driving impressions of the new RX, but the overhang is big on the new RX, and that's one of the biggest detractions in the overall design and aesthetics on the exterior. But the cabin from the C pillar to the A pillar looks almost identical between this potential Grand Highlander TX vehicle and the current Highlander. But it's when we go behind the rear wheel, it's one, it's camouflaged, and two, it's edited, so we can't tell exactly what these proportions are. But just know that it is a lot bigger. It goes a lot further back. And just from looking at this vehicle, the wheelbase looks to be noticeably longer than what we have on the Highlander. So what does that mean? Well, more interior cargo space potentially, but you're also going to have a better ride, a more comfy, cozy ride with a longer wheelbase. It's not going to handle as well, but Three-row large crossovers are not known for their handling. They're supposed to be luxury boats, and this will tick the box for luxury boat. But we don't need to look at this camouflage model to get an idea of what it'll look like. This helps with the proportions ends of things. But what we're going to do is overlay the image that Lexus already showed to us this past December. This vehicle, I mean, here it is. We don't need to stretch our imagination. It's not going to look much different than this. Lexus already showed what the RX would look like as well, I believe, before it was unveiled with this same image. Okay, so here's that image and here's that RX, right? This is the spitting image of the RX that we have coming out later this year, right? Not the F Sport, mind you. And here we are with the TX. So it's going to look like this. We just don't know the exact grille pattern. And if we look, this has the grille kind of grayed out, but there will be a grille here. Keep that in mind. There will be some sort of grille here. I don't expect this to be kind of blocked off. But with it being blocked off, I think that's a good indicator where Lexus is going with the powertrains with the TX. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the potential powertrains for this TX. Now, Toyota and Lexus have trademarked 350, 500H, and 550H Plus for this new TX. So the 350, it seems like the 2.4 liter turbo is a no-brainer. We have that 350 and the NX and RX, and even the new Highlander is using this 2.4 liter turbo. So 275 horse and 317 pound-feet of torque, made to an 8-speed automatic transmission, probably a front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive model. Now we also have that 500H, which if we see not only in the new Crown upcoming, but of course the Lexus RX 500H F Sport Performance. Does this mean the 500H TX will be F Sport Performance? No, I don't think so. I think there might be an F Sport and F Sport Performance models, but I don't think all of them will be F Sport Performance, if that makes sense, because there's no lower tier hybrid here on this model. But who knows? We'll wait and see. So 500H here has a combined horsepower 367 horsepower with electric motors and the 2.4 turbo and 406 pound-feet of torque. That's going to be possibly the most common model we see on the electrified end, because the only other model is this 550H Plus. What is going on with this? We don't have any other 550H Plus plug-in hybrid on the market. The plus indicates a plug-in hybrid. The only other plug-in hybrids we have will be the RX 450H Plus and the NX 450H Plus, which are right here in column G. Now, I don't know how Lexus and Toyota are going to build this 500H Plus. I have a source saying that they're going to use a modified version of the 3.5 liter V6. I don't understand that, but it's a possibility. But the one that makes the most sense to me is using the 2.4 liter turbo and putting a battery pack essentially with the 500H powertrain. And that might get us a little bit more horsepower and a little bit more torque, because you're going to be able to use that full electrification plus the potency of the engine. Now, I do expect the 6-speed auto to stick around. Lexus and Toyota like using that because it's very compact, and I can't wait to share with you my impressions on it on September 9th when the embargo ends. But I just got done reviewing a vehicle, the Volvo XC90 Recharge, which should go toe-to-toe in terms of powertrains with this bad boy right here, the 550H Plus. There are some differences though, because the Volvo has one electric motor, and that's just the rear electric motor, which is more potent than what we have on the 500H, for example. The rear motor in the Volvo XC90 has 143 horsepower and 245 pound-feet of torque. And with over 240 pound-feet of torque, it's essentially double what we see in the torque of the rear motor of the 500H. The Volvo has 455 horsepower, 523 pound-feet of torque, 35 miles of electric range. It can do 0 to 60, I tested, in about 5.4 seconds on average. But the interesting thing with the Volvo XC90 Recharge is that there is no electric motor up front. Only the gasoline turbo, the twin charged engine, because it's supercharged and turbocharged, connects to an 8-speed auto to run the front wheels. The rear wheels are exclusively driven by electrification. Not that much different than a Toyota and Lexus. The difference with this Toyota and Lexus is that we should be seeing a smaller transmission with less gears, but you're also going to have an electric motor in between the engine transmission to help with the propulsion to the front wheels. Instead, we can have a little bit less powerful engine on the front wheels because you're getting assist from an electric motor up there. I don't know what the power of the electric motor is in the 500H, but it's probably somewhere between 50 to 100 horse. I just haven't seen any publications post numbers about that front motor power output as well as torque. So it's anywhere from 50 to 100, and then we'll have anywhere from 100 to 200 pound-feet of torque on that front motor. And those numbers could be higher in the plug-in hybrid. I still don't know how the rear wheels will be driven. It would make the most sense to go and follow suit with the 500H and have that E-axle in the back. That makes the most sense to me. Drive shaft is a big question mark. The only way you'll have a direct connection between the front wheels and the rear wheels through a drive shaft is probably going to be on the 350 all-wheel drive model. But electrification, it just makes sense for them to put that E-axle on the plug-in hybrid. The thing is with this 550H Plus, I'm spending a lot of time with it because it's largely an unknown, is when is the battery pack going to be available? And that's a big question mark. Toyota just announced a huge battery investment in the plant in North Carolina, like somewhere over $4 billion. But those batteries won't come online until 2025 or so. So I don't expect this TX 550H Plus to hit the market in the United States until after 2025. And that's unfortunate because I really liked how this Volvo XC90 operated with its fully electric range and how it drove fully electric the majority of the time. We're just going to have to wait for that kind of range topping power, I believe. I could be wrong. The powertrains for the 350 and the 500H non-plug-in hybrid will be available at launch. And launch will be in late 2023. Production is supposed to start around October. But we're going to switch gears to this other Lexus coming out as well, an all-new Lexus. And this, my friends, and we knew this was coming. This is the first time we've seen it with the Lexus badge. So we're over at CarBuzz. They're getting it from our friends over at Lexus Enthusiast. Someone posted in the forum there. And I think the image has been taken down since it was posted. But we all knew Lexus and Toyota were essentially insinuating, hey, this GT3 race car concept is going to be a Lexus. And they even trademarked those images, and I'll put them on the screen for you. I'm just not going to pull them up right now. We don't know what this vehicle will be called. We're hearing twin turbo V8. We're hearing anywhere from 600 to like 900 horsepower. If it's going to be a GT3, it has to be capped at 500 horse, but they'll have multiple variations of it. I think we'll see a 500 horse GT3 model, and then we'll also see a plug-in hybrid potentially giving us gobs of power with electrification combined with twin turbo V8. But the last thing I wanted to mention real quick, because it is Toyota Lexus news today, Toyota plans to convert engine plants to battery factories and latest push for electrification. So Toyota is converting its Shimoyama and Maiyochi engine factories to battery plants as it moves toward an EV future. And this is the only way Lexus can do it. They have to convert their existing properties and factories to either battery factories or motor factories in order to pump out 3.5 million battery electric vehicles by 2030. Right now, they're not really producing any because the BZ4X is on hold and the RZ has been delayed. But more importantly, Lexus needs to make more batteries. They want to supply 280 gigawatts by 2030, but with the most recent announcement, by 2025, we're only going to have about 40 to 46 gigawatt hours on tap. So you're telling me between 2025 and 2030, you're going to have 6 times more battery production? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I know all these manufacturers are saying, hey, we're going to produce either fully EVs by 2030 or a huge portion of our output is going to be EVs. I just don't see the battery capacity ramping up to supply that sort of production capacity. And I also don't see the power grid here in the United States transforming in 8 years to support that sort of influx of battery electric vehicles, let alone the fast charging infrastructure that needs to be built out. I just don't see it happening by 2030. And then California by 2035, as well as a bunch of other states wanting to ban the selling of gasoline engines. I'm on the doubting Thomas side. I have to see it to believe it. And I'm all for the battery supply chain getting reworked for North America and battery electric vehicles being built here in North America. I'm all for that. But with the new EV tax credit, it is initially not going to help anyone at all. manufacturers or customers. It's going to be tough sledding for these next few years, and we're not going to get those incentives that we used to be getting on battery electric vehicles, because now the requirements are too strict, and my kids crying are not happy about it either. But I'm ranting too much at this point in the video. Anyways, I'll see you in the comments. Got to cut myself off. Had too much caffeine. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves, and peace out.